Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Pushing the Limits. Today I have two good friends of mine. I have Pele and Scott. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey Lisa.
Hey Lisa, pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. And poor Scott is over in Melbourne, so he's had to get up really early. So we're going to see the sunrise in Melbourne behind you. So that's quite nice. So thanks for getting up early. So you guys, we met, you got me to come and speak at one of your amazing B360 conferences a couple of months ago now. I was super amazed at that conference, and it was just a wonderful atmosphere, and the teachings were amazing and the people were amazing. Can you guys give us a little bit of a backstory as to how you got there? So if each of you could just tell us your sort of your backstory in a nutshell. And then we'll move it forward from there. So I'll let you go. Well, you go, Scott. You're far away. You start.
All right. Yeah, well, the Wellbeing journey and the conference that we hosted this year was our second one, Lisa. So we had our first one last year. And yeah, it took a while to get there, to be honest. I guess from our beginnings, it all started a few years ago. Pele and I have been good friends for many years, and we just shared this passion for well-being. We shared it with a number of friends and families, colleagues and professionals around just how to approach well-being in different ways and what ways sort of landed best for us. And from that, we basically developed our own framework or approach to well-being. And after a couple of years and before getting the conferences up and running, we were doing various pieces of work, trying to get different projects off the ground and working with different people. But a lot of it was out of our control in terms of getting anything up and running. And we just wanted to share the framework that we had. It was helpful for us personally. And we believed it could help a lot of other people navigate that area that we call well-being, which is, when you really reflect on it, what even is it? And yeah, it wasn't until we went to a conference in Auckland right before lockdown. I think the conference we were at, the Wellbeing Summit, was actually featured on the COVID news because it was such a big event and everything was just happening and shutting up. We went there in Auckland and we thought, this was an amazing day, and we could run the same thing in our own backyard down in Palmerston North, Manawatu. So basically from that conference, we were like, nah, let's put ourselves on the line. Let's get out there. Let's do something. Let's share our framework and our knowledge around well-being, and let's bring some amazing people to share their stories around their own well-being as well to help as many people as we can. So that's basically how the Wellbeing Journey Conference started, and that's where we're here today as B360 and getting into a number of other avenues as well.
Brilliant. And Scott, you've got a background. You're a chartered accountant and financial, help people with their finances and help businesses, startups and things like that. Can you give us a little bit of a background of your professional life, so to speak, prior to all this? Yeah.
So I guess one thing about Pele and I, we're complete opposites in that spectrum.
which is always good in business.
Which works really well. It's so my background is, I did about 6 years as CA, a chartered accountant working with businesses, small to medium enterprises. And then I moved into wealth management as a financial advisor. And it was there that I got to see and help a lot of people manage their finances, their long-term investments. But throughout that stage, I was always quite conscious and quite, I always valued my own well-being and primarily in a physical sense. I grew up playing rugby all of my life. I loved training. I loved to be in the gym and getting a sweat up. And it was there that Pele and I really formed a bond, which he can share with you, after. But always had that passion and sense. And so to be able to bring two skill sets in terms of my business and commercial background into B360, which at the core is about well-being, just ticked a lot of boxes for me, and it's something that I'm really passionate about and really grateful to be on this journey, building this business and getting out there and sharing, just talking about well-being, really.
Yeah, brilliant. That's brilliant. And Pele, give us your background. You're a dad of 5 kids for starters.
It's
Amazing.
it's a pleasure being on here, Lisa, and I'll just give a little bit of intro. Ko ai au, huri tēnei no te waipounamu me ngā te Haumaha hoki, ki te tau tōku mama, kora ki te maunga waitaki te awa, ko kaitau te iwi, Pele Aumua tōku ingoa. Yes, I am a father of 5, and they're a huge inspiration to me and pretty much my everything. I think if I trace back to, this sort of the beginnings of my professional career, I worked in youth justice, working alongside young people, saw the benefits in helping them rehabilitate and transition back into the community, and saw a lot of benefit in actually working with the community in terms of looking at how passing on knowledge and sharing value to people can really sort of translate into somebody changing their lives, which became a real addiction for me. So I started moving into that space a lot more outside of the work that I was doing, and started up boot camps and what have you. And like Scott said, we started with about 10 friends, which grew overnight. Within 3-4 weeks, we had 50 people turn up to trainings, and it was crazy. It was like that people talk about cults and things like that, but it was just a community of like-minded people, all on a journey to just pursuing better. And I think when you start to invest time into other people and see the changes and things like that, it just becomes so addictive. And what it's like. Scott knows what it's like, and that's why we're in this business. I think it's that's the true reward in it. And so throughout that journey, I ended up owning a gym for about 6-7 years, and found myself doing everything under the sun, wearing about 10 hats, and it's not conducive to looking after yourself, and you're serving everyone else but yourself, and that priority I had to shift. I think it made me sort of look at myself in the mirror and really look at my own well-being, and make some really hard decisions. And during that time, the community that we had built was like another family. It was an extension of who I was, because we had spent 6-7 years together, having barbecues, training. I was down there day and night, and it was really hard for me to break away from that mahi. But after selling the gym, I moved into the health space and the health sector, and now working in the wellbeing sector for primary health organisation, as well as B360. And so I only working part-time. It's only a small part of my day, but it is a massive piece of who I am. I still like to give back to the community, and likewise with B360, this is where it's landed now. Sharing all that knowledge that I've gained through social services, through the gym business, and now in the health and wellbeing sector. It's all encompassing, and really looking forward to sharing some value on this call to you.
Yeah, that's absolutely gold. And what I find, there's a couple of ways that this conversation, I want to talk about the entrepreneurial journey. We're all entrepreneurs. We're doing things, we're chasing our passions and our dreams. And I just want to encourage other people out there who may be stuck in some job that they don't like, or in a business that they don't like. And, listening to other people on their entrepreneurial journeys, I think, is always an enlightening, conversation that we can have, because, it's scary to jump off out of something that you've nailed, you've got it sussed. It's going well, one's a chartered accountant, one's running a gym, life's good. We're good to go. And then realizing, hang on, there's more that I want to do, and that you don't have to stay in the same thing forever. And, being willing to at some point jump off the cliff and see whether you can fly. You don't always, I'll tell you, having fallen off a few cliffs in my time. But every time you learn and you iterate and you change and you develop, And what was important for me out of that conversation that you just, that introduction, was that, you got to a point where you realize you're serving everybody else, and where the hell is Pele? Where is his health? Where is his well-being? And I think, when you get to a certain age, you start to realize that life is shorter than you thought it was going to be. And, your kids are growing all the time, and you better start looking after yourself. And, preaching to myself here, because, in the entrepreneurial journey is always this tension between, you've got this big vision that, and I know you guys' vision, I know it's big and I want to be a part of it, and that's great. And at the same time, not breaking yourself because you're working over here and you're building this up on the side. So how has that transition been for you both? If we go back to you, Scott, how doing multiple jobs and building a business on the side, and having the persistence to carry on through for, it takes a long time when you're doing something on the side. How's that been for you, Scott?
Yeah, it's been certainly a challenge or journey. I think coming from my background and being somewhat conservative bent, I was always sort of a little bit hesitant just to jump off the cliff. There were conversations that I was having with a lot of friends, though, in terms of the opportunity that was in front, and following that passion and building a business. So I've always been involved in various avenues inside of work, outside of work. And so for me, it's really just, so I still have an employment and part-time through our business like Pele, but there's always that fine line between, all right, what if I can commit more time into what we're doing here, what could be achieved? And so for me, I've always tried to create that space while also having some security behind me as well. So I haven't worked a full 5-day week in an employment for the last 6 years.
Yep. Wow.
And so I've actually just put that on the forward and being proactive in those conversations with employers and going, look, this is where I'm heading. Like, I still enjoy what I do here, because I do truly still enjoy what I do there. But I also enjoy and want to build, our own business and in this space. So I've always just tried to navigate and be proactive in those conversations to try and figure out what's going to work, I guess, for me, but also how it works for the other parties involved as well. And so, I think it's just weighing up that capacity. To be completely honest, there's probably the plate is super full.
Every entrepreneur's plate's full.
and it feels like when you're in that state, the plate's full because there's so much opportunity out there in various avenues. And so big part of actually coming over to Melbourne was, one, to celebrate my brother's 40th birthday, but was also to carve some time out and just reflect on where things are at for me, and have that time out of my sort of environment, my usual environment, to really lay out everything and go, well, what does the next 6 months look like? We've got some massive goals with B360, and it's really starting to build the momentum. And I think momentum's a massive thing. For a business, we want to be a sustainable business. We want to build a team around us. We want to bring you on, Lisa, and get you really stuck in. But we also want to be smart about it too, and not expose ourselves to too much risk, or get to ourselves where we're over promising and not able to provide some security to the team members that we want to have there one day. So for me, and the accountant hat on, cash flow is a big thing. Getting those businesses, it's a funny space we work in Wellbeing. There's a lot of organizations that are funded by grants. Hey, we went down that route, and there are a lot of funding available, but we just don't want to be constantly jumping through hoops, only to get to the end and be going, sorry, that you're just not right in the position that we are. And often that position is, all right, show us your 36-month financials, and we'll that you've got a healthy balance sheet, and we'll fund you. And so it's like, well, we're still sort of, at that very early stage. So it's just getting out there. There's quite a bit of hustle involved as well. It's just getting forward. But when it's being driven by the passion, it makes it easier to get in front and have those conversations, because you know what you're doing is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, and then so you got your passion behind it, and we'll get into B360 and the whole, the philosophy and your framework and things in a minute. But I just, as an entrepreneur who's wearing 1,000 hats a day and running multiple projects, supplements and coaching and one-on-one and packages and speaking and just going from left to right to all over the show, and it's really, really challenging. There's sometimes where you just sit down and go, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? There is an easier, because there's always an easy way out. Hey, there's always the easier, I'll go back to the tried and true, something I know I'm good at, and have that security. And I think people do need to always consider, especially when you've got kids and family or wife or husband, and you've got mortgages and things. You can't just go and be stupid and when you're young you can, like when you've got no responsibilities. I think you've got I certainly just followed my dreams when I was young and had some amazing adventures that way. But it's stepping out slowly, I think, isn't a bad thing to do. Stepping out of the 9 to 5 and the cubicle life perhaps that you've been in, and then creating your own world and your own destiny. And it does require a self-motivated mindset, and it does require a certain an entrepreneurial spirit. I've known since I was a kid that I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I didn't have the word for it back then, but I always wanted to run my own ship. I never wanted to be under anybody. I was unemployable, basically. Even when I left school, and I was a good student, I had half a brain. But when I actually came to the corporate world, I started working at State Insurance. Oh my God, you couldn't have put me in a worse place, like 18 years old. And then I quickly scuttled back to studying. I actually was going to be a chartered accountant, Scott, because my dad wanted me to be an accountant. Failed at that as well, because I'm like, I was good at it. I was actually good at it, the schoolwork, right, the study. But the adventures were calling, So in the middle of that, I took off and started adventuring around the world. But I just knew that I wasn't going to fit into that a box of anybody else's making. Didn't matter how good they were, didn't matter how nice the boss was. It didn't matter. I like to run my own ship, and I've got that really strong sort of mentality around that, I suppose, and that need for freedom. And creative expression and all of that sort of jazz. Did you have that from the get-go, Scott? Like, you were quite happy in that corporate space, but you just wanted more, and this well-being and fitness and health and mental health is your jam?
Yeah, it's I think it was a bit of a balance. It was there and it wasn't there. I think growing up, I always enjoyed and did well in the schoolwork and in that classroom environment. But at the same time, I was always quite disruptive and distracting to others, because, I was able to absorb everything, but I still wanted to hang out with my mates and muck around in class. And so I think that all came down to sort of, wanting that freedom, and I always sort of budged with a little bit of authority. It used to clash every now and then.
I'm glad
so,
you did. Not just me then.
Yeah, when I was younger, I was always the one sort of hanging outside the classroom because I got kicked out. But
in the back of the bus.
Yeah. So I think, where my life's gone now and where I want it to be is, I want to be at the tables. I worked so hard in that accounting and corporate environment to get a seat at the table. And in all honesty, I got that. And then I looked around the table and I was like, I actually don't want to be around this table. I want to create my own table and bring people that I want to be at that table and have a decision-making ability around that table. And so I think that's sort of one of the analogies that I really quickly realized. And actually when I got there, and it was like almost, it was just real funny how it happened. But I got there, I realized that I needed a change, and I actually just took 3 months off work after that time.
Wow,
To be
that's
like,
crazy, eh?
just because, like, you know, that was sort of the goal as an accountant. You're like partner,
Yeah.
or you know, director of the company. But yeah, it was just a big realization that it didn't really actually fulfill me as much as I thought. And actually, I'd way rather be over here with my mate Pele, like in the
Building
trenches, driving forward, but building something that you know is that we have a lot to play in and contribute to. So
Yeah. I
it
love
was
that. Sometimes, you know, when you're chasing big goals, and I know this from my life, you get to the goal and you're like, was that it? Was that it? And I think it's, you know, part depends on your chemistry and how you're made up, and if you've got a lack of dopamine receptors, and if you want to go into genetics. But you finally get to the thing that you've been fighting for so long for, and then it's like, what's next? And I, you know, over the years, I've sort of learned to try to actually sit and enjoy that achievement for 5 minutes before jumping into the next mission, because I think we tend to do that. Like, that's just that, you know, right next, I got there, I ticked that box, what else is there? And it's never, you know, sometimes never enough. And being aware of that personality trait, perhaps you've got that too. We'll have to do your genetics one day and see. But yeah, Pele, I wanted to talk to you about this too, because, you know, I think you transitioning out, and you've been a giver your whole life. Like, you've been giving to youth, you've been giving to the gym members and your, you know, gym family, and you're a definite role model, and a person that has, you know, you walk into the room, you know you're there, even though Scott's taller, you know you're there. People always have it easier.
Can't tell when we're sitting down though.
Tall people always have it easier, I tell you, and that sort of thing. But you've got a presence, and you're a role model for your community, I want to say, and you have so much now to share. You're at a point in your life where you've been around the block a few times. You've worked with a lot of people, a lot of youth, a lot of people with mental issues and challenges. How do you now want to give back, and how does the B360 framework that you've developed, I'd like to dive into that. You know, what do you see your role being in this mission that you guys are on to bring mental and physical wellness to people?
Yeah, it's truly exciting, to tell you the truth, because I think, Lisa, when we began this journey, we actually had to look at ourselves and our own journeys to actually find where we were going to go to with it. And we started with a blank page. Essentially, we kind of didn't know. We had a lot of conversations circulating around, you know, our concept, and we knew what the concept looked like. We just needed something tangible to bring it all together. And we, at the time, we were sort of floating a few ideas and just didn't really kind of know where to land with it. So we spent a good portion of time, I dare say like 16 months, working on all those foundational pieces which makes up our framework. And we didn't, you know, like Scott said before, we didn't rush into anything, because we really knew if we'd done this right and really put some good thought into it, then, you know, everything else would flow on from there. So what we've done is we've had some really robust conversations about how we navigate this space, and there's a lot of intellectual tennis that goes on between Scott and I. And if you sit on, we had a mate that sat in a meeting like a week ago, and he was like, you guys just, he thinks we're arguing, but we actually just very honest, and we still walk away from those meetings, you know, like really like good mates. And we'll always be very good, because we understand when we go into that professional, because like Scott said before, we're very different in our personality traits. So me, I'm the big visionary. I'll take a lot of risk, and you know, and I've experienced that with the gym and all that sort of stuff. But Scott like brings a lot of detail and process and system.
That's what I need in my world.
He's pretty risk averse as well. So, you know, but we're a good marriage in terms of, you know, what we bring to the fold. And I suppose when we go into, you know, navigating these conversations, we really bring different ideas and concepts. And I think that's why B360 has so much depth to it. And like Scott will be able to elaborate a little bit more about what that looks like. But it's exciting for us because we know the gold that we sit on and how we can and what value we can provide to the world. So it's hugely exciting for us.
And you've had got an amazing advisory board too. You've consulted with a lot of professionals in different areas, from psychologists to all over the place, to actually build this framework. So that's probably a good jumping point to talk about what B360 is about and what your mission actually is. So do you want to start with that, Pele, and just say, what is the actual overarching mission? You're the visionary, right? What is your end goal? And then we'll let Scott talk about the structure and the detail of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, we've had a lot of people come together, and it was like a focus group that we had, leadership coaches, clinical psychologists, organizational psychologists, nutritionists, PTs, yoga instructors. And what we done was we put a lot of ideas down and essentially made a framework or built a framework together. Scott will go into the detail of what the framework is, but our vision at B360 is to see a world where people essentially embrace holistic pathways and lead inspired, refreshed, and energized lives. And in order to do that, we really need to get an understanding of how we approach well-being. And essentially we have three key pillars that start us off, which is our mindset, our connected space, and then their functional space. So I'll pass it over to Scott because he's really good at bringing
he's great on the structure and detail of that. So over to you, Scott.
I quite often get those nice little short balls, or some call them hospital pass. No.
Yeah, you talk about the detail. We'll just talk about the big dream. How are you going to make this happen? So you have built this lovely framework in it. You've got this amazing logo and this amazing, vision. So tell us a little bit about the pillars, and then how you're actually implementing that in the corporate space and in the conference space, and what you're actually wanting to achieve on the practical down, actual level.
Yeah, cool. So I think just to preface it a little bit more. So the reason we've got this framework and where we are now is basically we came together and go, look, we want to establish ourselves as a wellbeing business. And at the time, wellbeing was a hot word. It still is very much a hot word, or the a buzzword. One of the things that we questioned around was actually what is wellbeing?
Yep.
What does it mean to people? And we knew that it can mean a whole array of different things from one side of the spectrum to the other. It's a very confusing, complex subject. It's very personal. It's very subjective to someone's own views and values. And so for us, we wanted to be able to go into these organizations and workplaces and to have these conversations around well-being. We needed something to set up some parameters so that we were at least on the same page from the beginning, and not spending a whole heap of time trying to figure out where everyone sat when it came to well-being. Either I just don't even really value or know what it is, to something that's maybe quite spiritual and those aspects. So really important for us was actually, how do we conduct those conversations so that we can provide some thought to help people come onto the conversation that may have been a bit hesitant or reserved because it was just a big unknown.
Yeah, it's just one big word of well-being. What the hell is it?
Yeah, exactly. And so, with the pillars, as Pele mentioned, our pillars are very, it's nice and simple. There's three aspects that we see feed into our well-being and ultimately how we feel going through life. And for us, our mission is that we want to see people feeling refreshed, inspired, and energized. And those three things are big words, and again, they're quite emotive, but we ultimately know the sense of when we are feeling refreshed. We know the sense when we're feeling inspired, and we know the sense when we're feeling energized. So it's sort of those aspects that we want to see people, and you can see it in someone's presence and energy. And I don't want to get too airy-fairy or spiritually, but I like to been reflecting a lot on energy, and I like to picture it when, you know how you've got night vision goggles that pick up heat.
Yeah.
I walk around sort of and having those images where I'm in a room and I can see people that are emitting heat.
Yeah.
And having their energy, and for me as well, and Pele, it's like when we walk into a room, we bring our energy and our
absolutely.
heat ray, and you know, we try and heat up other people.
Yep, gotcha. Yeah, I love that. That's such a good analogy, because you can picture that. You know, you walk into a room, there's a saying on our gym wall, actually, your energy introduces you before you even walk in the door, before people get eyes on you. And I love that, because it is true. Like, how you turn up, the energy that you bring to the room, people can sense that before you've even opened your mouth.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
I love that. And it's not, you know, like, it's not airy fairy. Like, you just go through today and sense people's energy, whether you're picking it up subconsciously from their body posture, their facial expressions. I don't know what it is, but we know on some deep human level how people are feeling, when people are negative, when people are positive. And you know those typical passive aggressive people that, you know, no, I'm fine, I'm, you know, like, you know, they haven't talked to you for 3 days, but everything's great. And you just, like, you know that something's off, maybe in a friendship or something, and they won't admit it, like, you know, and you know, like, you just know on a certain level the energy that's coming at you, and when you think about that, that empowers you to go, right, what energy. So when I come to, shouldn't be about me, but when I come to a client, right, I take 5 minutes, if I can, before meeting the person, to go, what are my intentions for this person? Not all the details and their blood work and their this and their that, or whatever I'm working on, but actually, what is my intention for this person? And then I bring that energy into the room. And I try to, like, I'm here for you in this half hour, this hour, or whatever we've got together. What is it that you need? And I'm listening to them and I'm asking them questions, but I'm trying to pull out, where, you know, from a gut level, where do I need to go with this person, you know? And that's, I think, what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so. And you know, I think a lot of that is just being conscious of how we're showing up. You know, sometimes I wake up and the day is like absolutely chocker full, and I can wake up and go, bugger, like, I am back to back to back. I don't think I've done all my prep for all these meetings, but I can either be like, let's just try and rush through this as fast as possible and get by as good as I can, or let's just take a moment and make sure that we are showing up. We can't do much because we've got that time allocated already, but let's find the best things out of this interaction and this commitment, even though we may not be fully prepared, or we've got the next thing behind it and the next 2 things, but let's be in that moment. I think that's that presence aspect that you're referring to, Lisa, and very much the same thought patterns as yourself.
Yeah, that's just so gold, because this is the reality of most people's lives. If we've just back to back, jam packed the whole day, and you do sometimes, you know, I catch myself when I'm tired, and, you know, I wake up and go, I don't want to get up, I don't want to start, you know, like, you just like, I just want to, can I just not go and stare at the ocean for a half a day, you know, and just do nothing? And, you know, I never achieve that, you know, because I will go for a walk and I will take my half hour out or something, and then I'm like, right, back into it, because I'm refreshed enough to go back into the you know, into the grind, if you like. But it is recognizing the need for that and trying to do that, especially as an entrepreneur or someone who's in a high-powered job with many responsibilities and, you know, kids and things, or family members that you're looking after, is to take those micro moments and try to refill your cup in those micro moments, if that's all you're going to get.
Yeah, I think it's important too, Lisa, that, you know, we understand how to generate energy. There's different ways, and so throughout our framework, you know, through the mindset, we look at, you know, time that you invest in yourself. You can generate energy by putting, like reading a book or doing something that fills your cup a little bit. You can, in our connected space, it's about that transfer of energy. So when Scott and I come together, we get into that connected space and we transfer energy. He'll give me energy, I'll give it back, and then we can walk away bouncing out the door.
Love it.
When we go into that physical space, you know, it's about what we put into our bodies. We can generate really good energy, clean energy, through putting good nutritious food or going for a workout or going for a walk or getting some fresh air. And I think it's really understanding the tangibility of how the framework works and the energy that where attention goes, energy flows. And I think being an energy-based model, we really want to give, you know, some tangibility about, you know, what well-being looks like and how you can approach it from the different angles and through those pillars.
Wow, I love that. And because a lot of people are like, I'm tired at the end of the day. I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to go training, go for a run. And it's like, you create energy by doing that. You don't expect to have the energy before you walk in the door. Action, motivation follows action. Motivation follows the action, not the other way around. And this is like trying to get people to understand that concept, that I am never motivated to go for a run. Hardly ever. Occasionally I'll get a real like buzz of energy and I'm like, whoa, I can't wait. But most of the time I'm dragging my ass out there. But after 5 minutes, that's when the motivation comes, because I'm actually in the thing and I'm creating that energy. Our bodies, like, you know, need to move, and they need nutritious food, and they need sunshine, and they need air, and they need time out. And our brain needs a space. We need to create a space, especially in this high-powered world that we all live in. We need to create, you know, and I'm a big fan of that micro moment, searching for those micro moments. You know, if you're like someone like me with, you know, a mum who needs care constantly, and you've got 100 clients, and you're doing the bloody, I don't know, Facebook ads and SEO and admin and Google and the rest of the crap that comes with running a business, at the same time, you better put high quality input into yourself, high quality nutrition, high quality micro moments out in nature, cuddling the cat, watching the birds, looking at the sea, staring at a tree, whatever you can get in that moment, right? And then putting good exercise into the mix as well, because blood flow is energy. It creates energy as well as using up your energy. It uses up the negative energy often. You know, like when I go for a run or a train at the gym, I'm using up the negative energy that I may have built up, you know, from the stress of admin usually.
It's funny, Lisa, when you talk about all that and you have to try and explain it to other people, it's easy to sort of put all that out there, all that information out there, but they're still like searching for, but how, you know, how. And I think when we go into that space, we really need to start with the individual and creating some sort of self-awareness. I think without self-awareness, we don't prioritize or make, you know, those things a priority within our lives. And once we actually get to that point of being more self-aware, we get to understand on, you know, where it sits within, you know, our daily schedule or, you know, our routines. And it's about creating routine and habit in order to form, you know, transformational change within our lives. Because if we don't commit to something, you know, then it's always just going to be, you know, waffly and kind of grey, and we're never going to, you know, meet any goal that we sort of set for ourselves. But once we create that self-awareness and then that motive to take action, then we've got something, you know, to start moving forward with. And so we've got to be examples of this. Scott and I talk about our self-awareness all the time. We've become better people throughout this journey, and we're always holding each other to account, because, you know, like without those honest conversations and us being an example of this framework, then, you know, it doesn't mean anything to anyone. So we can talk from our own experiences and, you know, true life. I think walking that talk is really important for us. So that's hugely part of, you know, who we are. And when we go back to the conference, the Wellbeing journey, it's essentially that the journey never stops. So the journey just continues throughout life. The pursuit for better in life never stops. There's no end to it.
No.
You don't get to an end point or a destination where it's like, yeah, you've won the jackpot or whatever. It just continues, you've just got to keep working at it.
Yeah, I love that. And Scott, like when we talk about you guys are fit, like you walk in the room and you've got a fitness, you've got an energy, you look healthy, you obviously train hard, and that is you living this life, isn't it? So I mean, there'll be times when you croak, there's times when you got no energy and some bloody virus or infection has got you or whatever, but you do the things every day that are going to keep you at your best for as long as possible. And I think that's my goal in life, especially at my age. It's like, Rocky, I've got to start working this stuff out to go backwards, because goodness knows I smashed the crap out of myself earlier and did a few things wrong. But Scott, how important is it for you to live this actual framework that you've built for the people that you're implementing it? So you go into corporate settings and you're talking to teams about, how do we bring a wellbeing focus to this team? And you're living it yourself. Do you want to have a chat about that, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, in some respects, it's a pretty selfish endeavor. For me and for the people closest to me, it's I want to live the best life for me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also know that in doing that, I'm actually going to encourage and inspire those closest to me to also do the same. So if I'm not living that example and challenging my own self with various aspects of my life, then I'm not doing justice to the people that I love and care about as well. And so for me, it's actually just, holding myself, as Pele said, to account and doing the things that I know get me feeling good and radiating that energy so that, I can, one, feel good, feel refreshed, inspired, and energized in my own life and where I'm heading, but also for those that are around me. So it's important that that's happening, because and again, we've always got to being, I guess, starting, not so much, but people know that we're involved with this business and they ask us questions about well-being, and I'll sort of mention around what my day involves and things like that, and they're like, wow, you've got a lot going on. How's that work-life balance going? And I'm like,
not.
I was like, hey, it's a little bit of a hard one for me, because I actually know in myself that I've always had lots of things involved with. I've always been roped into various projects and opportunities, and I just now take that on board, and it's actually getting to the point where actually everything I'm doing in my work is now my life, and actually just enjoy it. Yeah, I don't enjoy every second of it, but I know it's all towards a higher vision and purpose that I'm aspiring to, and that fuels me, and that's largely what I want my life to entail. So, that work-life balance, I just sort of I take the line that it's just life, and I've had some choice in how I spend my time or invest my time in those various avenues, but in terms of, I just want to be, we look at those physical aspects or visual aspects, the external stuff, but over the last few years, if I've come to realize anything, it's all around the stuff that you don't see.
Yeah, the stuff going on in the between your two ears.
Yeah, exactly, and so really had to sort of go on a bit of a learning journey around that aspect, and still, just as much as you allocate time to go to the gym and work out and catch up with friends, it's sort of putting time into yourself as well, and reflecting on your goals, values, vision, and again, this trip here is an example of me doing that. The time doesn't happen. You don't find the time. You either make it or it doesn't.
Yeah, I love that. And when you're like working with, you're working in a business, a corporate situation, whatever, a school. I know you do a lot of work in with schools and things. What is it that the program that you're offering or bringing into the conversation? Like, where do you see the deficits in the corporate world? I probably should put it that way. Like, where do you see that most companies, businesses are not doing the best that they could for their employees? Where do you see that their role should be? Who wants to take that one? Pele?
I can take it. Yeah, I think, you know, for us, when we've been into these conversations, there's a little bit of confusion as to who's taking that role within the organization. It's often a tick box sort of process as well. So you've got people in HR, health and safety, senior leadership teams, but no one really knows where that sits. Or so I think for us, it's actually giving them an understanding of what sort of commitment are you going to make to this, and where's it going to start? Because if it doesn't start at the top, then it doesn't filter down, because it doesn't go upwards. So we actually don't go into, and we're not going to put ourselves in a position where we do a consultation or do something with an organization where they don't commit from the top. So we're not going to sell our soul and say, yep, we're going to do business with you just to, you know, clip the ticket. We're quite clear on where it needs to sit, and you know, for us, it's going in with that level of conviction in order for them to understand how this needs to be a priority. And for us, we won't go into battle for anyone that's not prepared to go into battle for their people, because at the end of the day, we're there for the people, and we want to make sure that it's led, because it needs to be modeled. The behavior needs to be modeled from the top. You know, you can't be a dictatorship where people from the top are just saying it's for you guys. Hey, it's got to be done the right way. And so we always make sure that that all those pieces of the puzzle are there before, all those foundations are set before we go into to commit to a job. So
because I see in a lot of companies, you know, because I get to work in a lot of different companies and industries and get a peek behind the curtain. A lot of it is very much we've got to tick that box. You know, we've got to do our due diligence and make sure, just like with all the other tick boxing things that we do in our world, which drives me nuts, right? You know, we're slaves to the statistics department, really. You know, you watch teachers, nurses, doctors, and they're all having to fulfill all these criteria. They're constantly filling out forms. They're constantly feeding the database of statistics, but actually, are they having an impact on the ground? A lot of the time, no. And a lot of the time, it's just very much the management's done that. It's just like they've got their quota of Maori, and they've got their quota of Pacific Islander, and they've got their quota of the lesbian community, or whatever their things are that they've got to have their quota of, instead of actually having true reflection on equality and true reflection on racism and true reflection on physical and mental well-being of their people, you know. And then you do get like there's some fantastic charities and things that are starting to come to the fore. I've been working with a couple of ones in Taranaki in the building industry and the rural sector, where they're realizing that a lot of their people are mentally not well. And we're losing people to suicides week in, week out. And they're starting to do something about it from the people themselves. They're collecting themselves into groups and trying to create some resources and things. And you know, similar to what you guys are doing, and you're just doing it on a corporate scale and a different scale. But to me, it's like it has to be a real commitment. It has to be. It's like when I'm working with clients, right? And I've got, you know, one-on-one clients that I'm working with. I'm actually looking at that person the first time I have a consult with them and saying, can I work with this person? Is this person actually going to be committed to a journey, or do I just need this one session and I'll download as much information as I can, but I can't probably work with that person on one-on-one? And I'm very, you know, my spidey sense, if you like, is growing all the time as to how is this person, because I have limited resources. If I had a massive amount of resources and coaches and things that I could throw at people and hold their hands for every second of every day, that'd be great, but I don't. So because I'm limited, I have to pick and choose, not, you know, based on the people's personality and commitment to the journey. into the work that needs to be done. And sometimes it just takes people a little bit of time. So sometimes it's about, okay, let's have this conversation, let's have a consult. And then when you come back in 2 or 3 weeks, you've implemented some of the things, and then we'll have another consult. And then you see they're slowly getting their heads around stuff, because you can't just, and we're genetically all different. So some of us will just take action straight away, and some of us need time to ponder, and that's fine. But it's about when you take that time to actually come to the conclusion, yes, I do need to make some changes here, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to start taking some supplements and doing some exercise and optimizing my sleep and doing whatever we're talking about doing. Have they actually got the commitment, or are they coming with the attitude, what's your magic bullet? And there is no magic bullet. So do you find that too with the corporate? Like, just give us this course that you're doing, and we'll run it, and then we're
it's funny, funny that you say that. When we go into those sorts of consultations, people think that we're gonna solve all their problems. They're actually part of helping us solve the problem. So we go into sort of a co-design phase where they're as much a part of the solution as what we are. So we come with the tools to be able to help them navigate, and we know what resources and tools we have in the background, and we have a lot at our dispense, but we don't want to go in there sort of with a preconceived idea or concept of what we're going to solve without actually knowing what the problem is.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and
because it's
really
easy to do.
It's really important for them to be part of that, because then they get to then put their DNA into the fold, and then we get to then sort of merge what we have in the background and support them, because we're there as a support mechanism, as opposed to coming with our magic potions and wands and trying to fix everything. It doesn't happen that easily, so we've got to get them in amongst it as well. But with regard to the mental health stuff, we've been really invested in terms of again, looking at how we can provide some services and that really sort of help people in that prevention end of the spectrum, because that's really important for us. And as we know, mental health doesn't discriminate. And like when we talk about leadership teams and SLT and that, looking at leading from the front, it's not going to discriminate them. So them pushing it down even further away from them, that mental health is not going to be something that they're going to be able to avoid either. So we really want to start from that point. And so Scott and I have been, we're now instructors within mental health first aid. And so we've been now looking at how we can, share this value to the world, because, I went through a 5-day training, came back and was able to apply with full confidence mental health first aid to a friend that was at Subway, and he'd just lost his daughter-in-law, had taken her life, and then he was just wiping tears. He was a big burly rugby league player, and when I was playing rugby league with him, he was like somebody that you don't want to mess with, and he was just he was like wiping tears from his eyes. So I was able to then sort of apply mental health first aid with full confidence, and have that non-judgmental approach where I was able to connect him to support, and walking away from that conversation and knowing that he was going to be looked after was hugely rewarding for me, because I didn't go in just observing. I sort of, looking at, I wanted to make sure that I took action and had a conversation. Whereas I think, maybe a week prior to that, before doing the training, I probably would have looked to support him, but I wouldn't have known how to, even though I'm in this space. And so the mental health first aid training it's bloody amazing. Absolutely.
And you guys run this now, eh? I was hoping to get down there,
and we're really excited about sharing this value to the world, because I know that it's going to change lives, and not only professionally, personally, everywhere you walk, you can see an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody and just check in, because it's just a check-in process, really. It's nothing more than a conversation. And like, we walk around this world, with masks on, and we mask everything that we do, like we go into different spaces and we're wearing different masks constantly. So it's about having conversations, knowing the people that are around you, and then being able to unpack, kind of signs and symptoms that you can sort of identify throughout that, and then looking at ways, to then connect them to support if they need that.
Fantastic.
But it's amazing.
And you're running these courses now. So Scott, what is the mental side of what you do, the mental health work, mean to you?
Yeah, I think again, it just sort of, I don't know, for me, it comes down to, again, equipping myself with the tools and the ability to help someone else in need. So I think being able to go away on this course and upskill in this area, because it's such a prominent area, unfortunately, that there are mental health challenges out there. For me, it, like Pele said, given me a confidence and a sense of ability to protect or help people that are going through their, for example, previously. And I think a lot in workplaces, people actually genuinely want to help other people. But in this space, again, it's just another uncertain unknown. I don't know what I should say, what I shouldn't say, how I should approach it, how I shouldn't approach it. And I think just understanding those aspects and some empathy for those that have gone through those various illnesses and challenges, and what it felt like for them truly, just gives you a sense of appreciation for how serious it is. And again, they likened the pain from mental health, like severe anxiety being equivalent to like extreme back pain. So they had that relatedness, for those that still think, it's a little bit in their head to get over it type thing, that actually the pain is equivalent to that of a physical pain. So it's like, we wouldn't not run up to someone who's just broken their arm or snapped their arm off, and there's blood in that, and it's very obvious. Unfortunately, in the mental health space, it's not as easy as seeing those signs and symptoms. You actually got to be a bit more in tune and aware of what to look for in the slight subtleties. So that's been a massive course, and it's really exciting. And to be able to get into a workplace where these people that spend so much time together, to equip them with the skills to support and help one another if those signs and symptoms start to occur, and how to go about those conversations in a real, genuine, non-judgmental and caring way.
That's because we need more people on the ground. Like, it's all good to have a few psychologists and things, but you can't get into them. Like, you can't get into a psychologist without a hell of a mission. There's just not enough of them. There's not enough counselors, and there's not enough. So it has to be boots on the ground, your next door neighbor, it has to be your colleague. It has to be, in that first instance, at least, caring about one another and supporting each other, and understanding, the different backgrounds, because we all seem to we look at the world through our lens. So what I've experienced, I bring to my judgment to you, right? And I think you're experiencing something similar when you could be experiencing something completely different, but that's the lens I look through. So it's understanding that your chemistry is different. And this is one of the things that, by studying genetics and understanding neurotransmitters and the differences, and being a biohacker and experimenting on myself with lots of different neurotransmitters and things, like, I know that I can turn myself into a real dickhead if I do anything that's going to up my dopamine levels. I can turn into quite an asshole, because that's what dopamine does. So for people who take dopamine driven supplements and things, can actually turn into very goal orientated, great visionaries, great focus, great all of that, but actually they lose the connection to the people around them. On the other hand, people with lots of serotonin and things that are more calm, and or a lot of prolactin, they're very stable and caring and nurturing. And so we're just this like chemical, like, once you learn you can tweak and play with neurotransmitters. Not that you should do that, willy-nilly, but that's this is partly what the psychologists do, and the psychiatrists do with different drugs and things, mediate things. but we are chemistry. We are our chemistry, and your mood and your behavior is very much influenced by your hormones and your neurotransmitters, as well as your backstory, as well as the framework from which you live through, and as well as what you've experienced. So, we are extremely complex beings, and this mental health first aid course, can people do that with you guys? Can they register, or is that part through the corporate stuff that you do, or can the public sort of reach out to you and come and do this mental first aid course?
Yeah, no, so we'll be hosting mental health first aid courses. So they're 2-day courses, but we'll be looking to run one a month. And then we do sort of with workplaces that have enough people and interest to go through them, we'll host them specifically for them and their team.
Brilliant.
So they will be hosted around the country and available for anyone to sign up to. And obviously we've seen the value that it has for our own selves, and so encourage people to start thinking around those aspects as well.
No, that's really great. So people can reach out to you. So if corporates, people in the corporate setting and the companies and stuff that want to reach out to you, or if people that want to do the mental health first aid, or maybe attend one of your conferences, and trying to get conferences up around the country. The one that we did in Palmerston, where I got to speak at, that one was just absolutely marvelous and just so well run and so well organized and just absolutely brilliant. And the energy and the things that we took away from that day has given me a bit of a blueprint, like that's how you run a conference. So if anyone gets a chance to go to a B360 conference, that might be coming to a place near you, give the guys a little bit more time, then make sure you do. So where can people find you guys and reach out to you?
Yeah, so best place is probably to jump onto our website, www.be360.co.nz. We've also got some socials as well on our Facebook and Instagram. So same thing, BE360NZ is our handle, and I think those are the main two places if you want to get a hold of us.
Absolutely brilliant. And Pele, have you got any final words before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to thank you, Lisa, for your time and giving us the platform to be able to share our concept and a little bit about who we are and what sort of drives us towards, sharing this value to the world. So thank you, ngā mihi, kia koutou, and thanks to your listeners as well for tuning in. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you so much, Pele. Thank you, Scott. It's been an absolute privilege having you on the show today.
Same here, Lisa. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Can't wait to be working with you.
I know. Get your stuff together. Let's get organised.
Let's do it. Look out, world.
Yes.
Exactly.